Today is my very first video in the new digs, and it's a special video because today I'm going to teach you how to install a piece of telemetry that Traxxas actually doesn't offer, and it's the tachometer for your 6S and 8S X-MAXX vehicles. I actually called Traxxas and asked them for a parts list for the tachometer telemetry because I had every other bit of telemetry that you can actually order for the 6S X-MAXX, and a gentleman by the name of Jeff, hey Jeff, down at the parts department in Traxxas said that they didn't have the parts list for the 6S and 8S X-MAXX. He told me that they just didn't make them, that I would have to be creative. So that's exactly what I did. I went into my model and I poked and prodded and cut and shaved and glued and did everything that I possibly could, and I actually came out with a pretty good setup, good enough to where I'm actually going to teach you guys how to do it. So without further ado, let's get started. Well, let's start by going over some of the things that you're going to need to get the job done. You're going to need your basic tools that fit your Traxxas. Now this can consist of the tools that came with your Traxxas model, or you can get a nice set from your local hobby shop for about $20. You're definitely going to need some two-sided sticky tape, the stronger the better, and a pair of scissors to help you cut it. You're going to need some hobby grade super glue, the stronger the better. I got this at my local hobby shop. You're going to need a Dremel tool with various bits, a few zip ties, and sandpaper. You don't need much, but 150 grit to 220 should do you just fine. And finally, you're going to need an electric drill with various drill bits ranging from 1/32 to about 1/4. Now that we've gone over the tools, there's just a couple parts that you'll need. Now, all of the part numbers are in the description below. You're going to need an RPM sensor, you're going to need a magnet to trip the sensor, and you're going to need the Traxxas link system. Now you're going to need to disassemble your truck to at least this level. You're going to need to remove the cover that covers your spur and pinion gears, and also the cover next to it that will release your spur gear assembly. Okay, now we're going to install the magnet in our spur gear. Now this is probably going to be the most difficult part of this entire adventure. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to remove your spur gear from your assembly, which I've already unscrewed all 3 of my screws. Now if you'll notice, I have already installed the magnet into my spur gear. So this is the magnet that comes in your magnet trigger assembly from Traxxas. Now these 2 parts here would actually attach to the spur gear of your Slash, or I believe your 1/18 E-Revo. They don't actually make one of these for the 6S, or I believe even the 8S X-MAXX. So instead of attaching this, we're just going to attach the magnet. What I did was I used my Dremel tool and I carved out a very small spot here and here, which allowed this magnet to sit flat. Once I got the magnet to get into this space and sit flat, I then super glued the magnet in place. Now, the very important part of this portion of the job is that when you get the magnet assembly, there's a small red dot on one side of the magnet. Now the important thing is this red dot has to face out when you attach it to the spur gear. I have a feeling it has something to do with the polarity, and if you get this wrong, I don't believe it'll work. Now the red dot is missing on here because when I got super glue on it, it went away. What I did before I attached this was I actually took some sandpaper and scuffed the opposite side of the red dot so that
the super glue had something to adhere to when I glued it to the spur gear. Once you get this glued in and it doesn't move anymore, then you're pretty much safe. You want to make sure that this is attached, because if this magnet comes off while you're driving your X-MAXX, you run the risk of the magnet getting into your gears and ruining a lot of stuff that you're going to have to replace later. Once you do attach this magnet with the super glue, set it to the side and work on something else while this dries. This usually takes about an hour to cure. At least it does with this super glue. And when you get super glue, don't feel ashamed to spend $8 or $9, because you're going to want this to stick. And you're going to want to make sure it sticks the first time, because if it comes off, it's going to be a very large problem. Now, while your magnet is drying on your spur gear, you can work on your spur and pinion gear cover. Now, this is important because your spur gear is actually going to spin inside this cover, and as it does so, this magnet is going to pass this hole that you're going to make in the corner of the cover. And I don't know if you guys can see that, but the magnet is actually right there where the hole is. So this is the largest spur gear that goes in the X-MAXX. This is a 54 tooth spur gear, and if you were to use a 46 or a 50, this hole will have to be in a different spot. So if you plan on using all three, maybe you would just channel out, you know, a larger hole. Basically, whenever you do this, you want to make sure that when this spins, the magnet actually passes this hole. When we install this later, your sensor is actually going to be on this side of the hole facing the magnet. So when this spins, it will trip the sensor. Now, all I did to the cover is first I drilled a hole here, and I did that by using just a small drill bit, and then I just walked my way up to probably, I'd say maybe 1/4 of an inch. Now once I got the hole drilled in there, I then used a little piece of sandpaper and went inside of the hole to kind of clean everything out. You don't want all of the bits of plastic getting in your gears. Now the other thing you're going to have to do is make room for your sensor. In between this and your motor mount, there isn't enough room for your sensor to actually fit in between them. So what I did was, again, I took my Dremel tool and I put the round sanding disc on it, which is not this, but the round sanding disc, and I actually walked it back and forth on here, and I'm not sure if you can see it in the camera, but I shaved a good deal of the plastic out. And what happens is now the sensor can fit in between, and once I reassemble the truck, you'll be able to see that a little bit better. Okay, when you get all the covers reinstalled above your pinion and spur gears, you're going to take your RPM sensor and you're going to wedge it down in between your battery housing and this cover. Once you get it in there, in front of the hole that you drilled previously, you're going to take two-sided sticky tape and you're going to wedge it on top of and on both sides of the sensor. Now I know it looks crazy, but if you watch my videos, I do not play nice with this truck, and this sensor never moved. So this is about as good as I could get it. Now the other end of this sensor is in your receiver box, and there are directions for that Traxxas includes in the RPM sensor package. Okay, now I've got everything put back together again. Basically you can see the truck does work, and I'm linked up to telemetry, and the telemetry is right here. So now I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now I removed the speed so you could just see the RPM there, and that's what that is right there. And let me get it in focus. I'm a terrible camera operator, so I apologize. This isn't about camera, it's about RPM. So there's the RPM, and if you get it to link up right, then it'll work. So I'll give it a little bit of juice here.
And there you have it. Well, there you have it. That's how you install the tachometer on a 6S X-MAXX. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments below, and be sure to check out my other videos. Thank you.